Welcome in, builders and reavers alike. Wanted to make a quick start guide for anyone new to Zephon that wants to hit the ground running, because there are a few things you need to get acquainted with in how this title runs. I will say it runs very similarly to their previous title, Warhammer 40k Gladius Relics of War, although with a much shorter name this time around. So let's get you started on your first game. This is going to be relatively quick for me and just show you kind of enough to get you started and comfortable to learn the game. First thing I would do on coming on in here is actually go to the settings, and there's one setting in specific that I think you definitely want on. When they didn't have this in Gladius, it drove me up a wall, so I'm very glad that this game started with it, and that is show cliff highlights. When we get in game, I'll talk more about why this is so important, but just know I would suggest probably everyone has this running, but as a new player, for sure, you want to be running this. In addition to this one, to taste, you may want to show attack area. That'll just help you learn the different ranges of different units. You might want to turn on the grid if you can't see through the code of the matrix, as it were, and you're struggling with being able to tell what is in what hex, where can you reach, why can't you shoot this certain thing. This will help you a lot. If you're struggling with performance for some reason, you can also show performance here, and it'll put it up in the corner and show your FPS and etc. Just a couple more tips on here. Under video, you most likely want to come in here and give yourself a max FPS. My monitor is a 144 hertz monitor, but because I record in 60, I have just cut myself down to 60 here. If you don't do that, your video card may start revving up for takeoff, as it will just pump as much FPS into it as it can. In addition, if you're an old man like me, you may want to go up to the graphic user interface scaling. I have it on 125. This is what I naturally play at. I do find the 100% a little small since I do game at 1440p, and the UI is a little hard on the old man eyes. Beyond that, of course, you have audio settings and controls. One thing I will say under controls, I went in here and I remapped the map move to WASD. It is natively on your arrow keys, and what that unmapped for me was some of the hotkeys for unit actions. I will probably come back in here and try to fix this, but for now, I just wanted to be able to move the map with WASD. It is current year. We're not using arrow keys for moving the map around anymore, guys. Let's get that fixed. All right, complaint aside, if you're really, really new to strategy games, play the introduction game. It's an okay tutorial to get you started, but if you're like a lot of people and you don't really want to do that, you just want to hop in, but you do want a little bit of a more solid footing, follow along here. We're going to start a new game. This is what a new game lobby looks like. It's going to have you and 4 AIs. I'm going to leave everything here on default. Difficulty medium is just the quote-unquote normal difficulty. That is no advantage or disadvantage to the AI. I will say the AI, at least from what I've seen in the demos, and I did play a couple rounds before making this video, is competent. And I expected as such, because the AI in Gladius was relatively competent, especially good at punishing you if you make tactical mistakes. It's also pretty good at running its own economy. And I will say, just my initial impression, the AI in Zephon is better at getting out onto the map than the AI was in Gladius. Sometimes the neutrals would bully the AI to the point the AI was feckless. So I'll talk more about that when we get in game too. Beyond the standard settings here, you also have some buttons up here that you can do advanced settings. You could turn on Iron Man if you so wish. I always play as if I'm in Iron Man, but I generally don't turn it on if I'm going to be recording a video. There are quests in this game. I'll say from experience in Gladius, I like to play through the quests once for each character. There are some achievements in this game, and something else I think you might need to beat the quest to unlock. I'll show you that in a second. But if you don't like the quests, I know some people just don't care for those. They just want a straight war game. You can totally turn those off here. And you could change the pacing, and you also could just turn it to none. In addition, there's the escalation pace. I would say leave this on standard for your first game. You'll see what it is when it happens, and you can decide how you want to do it. I have a feeling a lot of people are probably going to also turn this to none once they see how that works. But for now, we're just going to leave it standard. If you're putting teams on, aka maybe you're playing in multiplayer with some friends, or maybe you just want to team up with the AI, you can set fixed teams so you won't be able to be betrayed. You can turn off duplicate factions. I quite like doing this. I do not like it when you get duplicates of factions. I like to have everyone be on their own. You also can do a ton of other customization. I would leave that alone for your first game. Finally, I'm just going to show this. I don't have any of these unlocked yet, but we have mutators, which are essentially more game options. And once you unlock some of those, you come in here to do it. As for starting out as a very, very new player, if you have not played Gladius, I would say you should probably try the Fallen Soldier or the Emulated Mind. Play whatever looks interesting to you. I'm sure it'll be fine. But the reason I suggest these two, the Fallen Soldier has an ability called Undying. This makes all of his units regen HP automatically every round, rather than having to sit still and heal over time. This is a lot more forgiving if you don't understand how the tactical combat works. The Emulated Mind, on the other hand, is a faction that only gets one city, so you don't have to try to figure out how to expand. You'll just have one relatively powerful city. It also gets a big cannon on top of the city, and that will help you out in your initial clearing of the map, especially as a new player, again, that doesn't understand the tactical combat. For the purposes of this one, let's do Fallen Soldier. I'm going to leave just the AIs on, and let's start. There's going to be a really cool intro video here that I'm going to skip. I definitely suggest watching it at least once. All right, we are in game now. First thing I would say to note is, as the Fallen Soldier, we have 2 militia units and a outrider buggy. Those are our military units, and we start with a set of engineers. Engineers are a unit we can build more of later once we unlock them, but their most important thing to do at the beginning of the game is to found a city. Before you drop your city, first thing I would do is try to look around a little bit and be very careful as you do so. One of the big learning pain points of this game and its predecessor Gladius is a unit that runs off on his own dies on his own. Don't do it. Just do not do it. Even after like 1,000 hours of Gladius, I still make that mistake sometimes. Don't. Stick together. This is your squad mates, your army. You don't go and be a solo hero. That's how you're going to end up getting killed. Another thing to note is the way that Gladius works is you have a certain amount of movement points and you have an action point. Once you have taken an action, it consumes all of your movement points. So if there was a bug here and I shot it, I can't shoot it and then move away. I am stuck here. So you want to make your move, and you only get to do one move order. So if I moved right here, 1 hex away, it would use up all my movement, and I could still take an action, but I could not then go, oh, okay, I'm going to move 2 more hexes. So you have to commit. That's part of what makes the tactical combat so good. For this one, I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to take this guy. That's very tempting, but I'm not going to do it because, as I mentioned, don't run off on your own. Because I understand how the Gladius maps work, it does look like we have a coastline right here. And you can kind of zoom in and get a hint. You can see a little bit of water here. Another thing you can do is sometimes you can kind of see into the fog of war. Like I can see there's a forest right here. Sometimes you can get some hints just out of sight. Looks like there's some more forest off in the distance. Things like that. As I'm looking about where I want to move, there are points of interest on the map. So here's a Survivor's Bazaar, and it's labeled as a capturable outpost. Over here, I have a microchip fabricator, a capturable outpost. What these are going to do for you is, if you're the last person to stand on that hex, you will own it. And as we can see here, it's going to add 2 influence each turn. And if I connect it to a city, it will give us 20% increased influence production in the city. And looks like this one's going to give us 10% trade gain. If we were to do the same with the microchip fabricator, we would gain 1 chip per turn. If I connect it to my city, the whole city gets plus 20% chip production. And this one gives us +2 hit points for stationed mechanical units each turn. So if I were to park a damaged outrider here, it will heal faster. Parking a biological unit in fact, any unit inside of any point of interest will make them heal quicker. Okay, that's a lot. That's probably too much information to get you started, but that's basically the combat, or the basics of movement and the basics of map objectives, I would say. All right, I'm going to drive over here just to see what we have. All right, another thing I'm noticing, we have some caches here. So we have a human cache, and a human cache. So these are essentially goodie huts. And when you drive there, they'll give you goodies. I believe there's 3 types. There's the human ones, and then cyber ones, and then voice ones. Kind of hearkening to the different types of pseudo-factions that we have. All right, I still have one more person that can move. I do see a neutral unit I might want to fight. I'm going to go here. I just wanted to see what else is nearby. Okay, now we can see a pretty decent area. In this game, the longer you wait to found your city, the further you're getting behind. Generally speaking, I tell myself I have to found at the absolute latest on round 3. So let's see what we can do. So I'm going to click found city. And first thing it's going to do is it's going to highlight some spots in white that the game suggests to you might be some good spots to settle. You can see here I have a green outline of the areas I can move. Because of these ruins here, I can't get very far if I wanted to run off this direction. Because this is open over here, I could move much further. As I'm moving my mouse around, you can see it's bringing up resources from the squares that are around where I would found my city. Our resources are food, minerals, energy, algae, chips, influence, and research. Generally speaking, most units that are non-mechanical, and especially mankind units, use food. Mineral units are used more by cyber type units, but also all different types, especially mechanized units. Energy powers different buildings and can be needed for upkeep of some units. Same for the previous two, can be upkeep also. Algae is needed for voice units. Chips are needed for cyber units. Influence is used for special powers, for trade currency, for maintaining hexes that your cities acquire. We'll look at that here in a minute. Also for recruiting heroes. And research is used for opening up new techs. Now, I know because I played a lot of Gladius where I like to try to settle, but if you're just completely lost, just do one of the game's suggested ones. It'll probably be fine. For me, one of the big considerations, when you first found a city, you can use the hex that you found it on and the surrounding set. As you go up your tech tree, you'll get increased city size. So pretty soon I'll be able to do the next ring. And then later on, I'll be able to do the next ring. However, I can't do it in the water, nor can I do it over cliffs. Like, I can't jump a cliff. I need to find a way around when I'm building my city. So I don't like these two spots because I'm going to immediately bump up against the coast. Although there are reasons why you may choose to do that. For me, I think I'm going to try extra food over there. Kind of like this spot just because it gives me a little bit more room to grow. I'm gonna go ahead and do that for myself. All right, once you have founded your city, it'll take you into the city UI. A couple things to note here. Each hex has a number of city build locations. So we can see here, we have a 3-digit location. This is hex 33383. The third digit is terrain height. This generally doesn't matter, except if the terrain difference between two hexes is too far, it becomes a cliff. If the terrain difference is too far between units trying to shoot at each other, it may block line of sight. For the purposes of our city, that's only relevant for our central hub. The main city building has defensive weapons that can shoot. If I'm holding spacebar here, and it's putting up this dotted line. That's showing you ranges. So I know this city has rocket launchers that are range 3, and then it also has assault rifles, which are range 2. So if something's way out at the periphery, we can shoot some rockets at it, and as it comes closer, we'll have rifles that can also contribute. Going further into the hex, after the location, there's a symbol. I'm going to call it City Hex 3. That means if I capture this hex, I can build 3 buildings here. The one that I built on is City Hex 2. So I already have built 2 buildings here. We have our headquarters and our construction yard. Every city will start with those. If you found in a location that has 3 hexes, you'll have an empty hex that you can immediately build a building in. We did not get that. So first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to acquire a tile so that we can build other things in it. We could acquire the Survivor's Bazaar, which will increase our influence income. However, you'll note here we have 0 city hexes. So on these special points of interest, when you capture them, you cannot build other buildings there. If you're okay with that, you can capture it right away. For the purposes of what I want to do, I probably want to get a barracks up and running relatively quickly and some other starter buildings. So I'm actually going to grab this one here that just has 3 build slots. I'm not planning on using the bonus chips, but I just want the build slots. When you're picking your spots, this bonus applies to buildings built in the hex. So if I build a farm here, I don't get any bonus. If I was to build a farm here, I would get 10% extra food. If I capture this hex and then build a farm over in the original one, I don't get that 10% bonus. That's not a city bonus. Whereas the points of interest ones are city bonuses. So once I've captured this, if I build an influence building over here, I do get that 20%. Notice the different color on it. Let's go ahead and grab that tile. While we're in the city, another point, clear tile might become relevant. If you capture a hex that has mines in it, bleed, ruins, or forest, and you don't want those, this is how you can clear them out. Bleed is this purple goop. Generally speaking, it's bad for most things. They're like plants that are trying to like eat you, essentially. They stop movement, they hurt you for standing in them. You can't build in it, at least not natively. So if I captured this hex, I would have to spend time clearing the tile before I could do other things. Next, it wants me to choose some research. Research, this is actually in the options. You can change how this works a little bit, but I need to, by default settings, research 3 technologies from tier 1, and then I will unlock tier 2. If I unlock 3 technologies in tier 2, then I unlock tier 3. You can always go backwards, so I could do one thing in tier 2, and then I could come back and get a 4th tier 1. In addition, there's some background icons behind the various techs. This shows you which tech this is. So if I do this, I can hide things. Human tech, because we are the soldier, we are a human faction, we can get these earlier than you otherwise would be able to do. So you can see here, there's 2 cyber techs, 2 voice techs, 2 human techs, but then 2 that have been brought down from higher tiers because we are a human aligned faction. If you wanted to play a pure playthrough, you could even just hide voice and cyber techs, so you didn't even have to see them and be confused. I don't know whether it'll turn out to be a strength or a weakness of this game. For me personally, I wish we had a little bit more defined factions. But as it stands, even though I'm a human faction, I can research voice and I can research cyber units and buildings and techs. So if I wanted to mix and match, I totally could do that. For starting techs, some strong contenders would be your hero unit, whatever it is. For us, it's the commander. The administration complex allows us the building that is the influence producer. The research lab is the research lab where we will produce research. The expedition outfitter, we get 10 free influence when we capture a point of interest or an outpost. That can be pretty strong if you're going to try to really push out into the map, and would allow you to possibly delay your administration complex. Itinerant recruiters for humans is pretty good. It makes our barracks have extra production. Industrial density is also a pretty good contender. This will make our construction yard build faster. And this is a major slow point until we can build more construction yards in tier 3. So I think that could be a very strong one at the beginning of the game. For the purposes of us, let's get the commander rolling. The reason I like to get heroes early is heroes can level up and pick abilities. So the sooner you get him out and leveling, the stronger he will be. Go ahead and pick that. And it wants us to intern. Before I do that, over on the right-hand side are going to be all kinds of things that come up. So like City Discovered, Abcon Discovered. If you click on one of these, it'll open up the compendium. It'll give you a little lore blip. It'll tell you the attributes of the thing, which you can mouse over to learn about it. I will say, just because I've seen some people very confused about this, because the game doesn't do a great job of introducing you to the concepts, armor on a unit is a percentage damage reduction. So you can see here, each point of armor reduces damage taken by approximately 8.3%, and we have a maximum of 83. So if you had 10 armor, you would be at maximum. Another one that is hard to find, look in here, can I... Traits. Well, another one that can be rather difficult for people to understand, here we go, weapons, this will give me it, is accuracy. If I find... Yeah. Accuracy isn't hit or miss in this game. It's each point of accuracy increases your hit chance by approximately 8.3, and what that really means is your damage. So 50% accuracy means that the amount of damage I'm expecting, which is 6 here, other factors taken out, I'm only going to get half of that. So I would do 3 damage. If I could buff my accuracy up, my damage will go up. So you could just think of damage or accuracy as a damage buff, and obviously, other factors aside, this would cap out at 100%. So if you have units like our commander who have accuracy buffs, by giving those to other units, you're essentially buffing their damage. I would definitely say if you're new, check these out and read them. You'll learn lots of information. Going into turn 2 here. You can fast forward. This makes it very fast. I would not suggest fast forwarding when you're in combat, because you need to see how things are moving around and what's happening. All right, for the purposes of us, I think I'm going to go engage this unit. I don't want to get this guy on me, so I'm going to move up. I think I'm going to capture this human cache, and yeah. It should be noted, infantry units can have cover inside of ruins or forests or other things, and cover is very, very good because it will give you damage mitigation and make units very, very tanky. If you're not messing up or vastly out-teched, you're not going to generally have units get one turn killed. So it's important to preserve your units, and keeping them safe and in cover is a way to do that. Large units like this vehicle cannot have cover from that, so I'm less worried about fighting out in the open. Go ahead and put some damage in that, and then next turn we'll engage with our other units. We can immediately in turn. Oh, he flew over there. Okay, another great one. Because we didn't use our action, we are in Overwatch. He moved into range, so our units will take their Overwatch shots. Worked out quite well for me. And there's our city getting its Overwatch. That was a bad move by the AI, but the AI didn't know we were here. So good to set up ambushes. Another thing I should note, infantry in like a forest, if they haven't taken an action that the enemy could see, like shoot, they don't know you're in there. And they may walk right up and get shot in the face, just like what happened here. And in fact, I think we got so many Overwatches, our city's going to be able to finish that unit off. So I freed up my own units to not have to do that. All right, on this one, I'm going to run over here and grab this other cache. We did find another unit, so I am going to continue marching in that direction with my troops, taking advantage of the cover where I can. I am going to take the shot because they are probably going to shoot me anyways, so I might as well get the damage out. All right, our city acquired its first hex right here. Should be noted that being a city hex is a, what do I want to call it, a map tag. If I have units inside of a city hex, they'll gain extra defense, and they also will heal faster if they're healing. In order to heal, you have to hold still. You can't be moving around and taking actions normally. Do note, though, because of our faction, we have Undying, so we just gain 2 HP every single turn. This makes us far, far tankier than most other units will be. So this is why I would suggest the Fallen Soldier as a great starter faction pick. All right, going back to our city here. So now you can see I have 3 empty building slots, so I can pick any of the buildings that I would want, or I could acquire other tiles. It should be noted when you acquire a tile, it has a 1 influence upkeep. So don't just grab another tile here and another one here and another one here. Only do it when you need it, because we're only making 10 influence right now. That can rapidly be dwindled by grabbing too many extra tiles. So really think about what you're grabbing and what you need to put inside of them. For our purposes, I'm going to drop a barracks so that we can start producing more units. Should be noted that read through what these actually do, because they do more than just their main function sometimes. If we look at this barracks here, produces human infantry as well as increasing housing and loyalty. And that's a great segue into those mechanics. So our city has a population. Every building we build, generally speaking, requires 1 population to work it. If you go above that, you start taking a percentage penalty to all buildings. That's not good. You really don't want to go above your population. Next, we have housing. Housing is the number of people that we can fit inside of our city. It also affects the speed of growth. You want to have available housing to keep your growth at maximum level. Unfortunately, the tooltip here doesn't tell you what the equation is, but I generally try to keep, once I'm up and running in a city, maybe 4 empty slots. So 4 more housing than I have population, just to keep that nice and high on the growth rate. Next, we have loyalty. Loyalty is a really, really interesting mechanic that Gladius used the same way. For every point of positive loyalty, we get a blanket 1% production bonus. That's okay. However, for every negative point of loyalty, we get a 2% penalty. This can be absolutely crippling to your economy. So while you don't need to be positive, you definitely do not want to be in negative. So things that increase loyalty, like our barracks here and another tech we will look at in the future, which will give us a building to do that, are very important. Another thing to note, if things start attacking your city, you will get a temporary penalty to your loyalty. So if I was to let neutrals walk up here and start shooting my city, it can be quite devastating, especially in the early game, because it's going to slow my everything down. So it would slow my production down. It would slow my building of a militia down. It will slow my research down. It will slow my hero production. Every single thing will get penalized. Don't let them do it. Keep things away from your city. One way to do that is, as you can, try to add hexes all the way around. And while they can still shoot over that or walk into it to attack you, that also means your own units could stand inside there and kind of body block for your city. Okay, they're taking their shot at me. Also, I should note, take a look at the things that are around and what their traits are, because sometimes they have distinct weaknesses or strengths that you can take advantage of. So right here, you can see he has an ability, Hammerhead Target, plus 33% damage taken from hammerheads. He used an ability on me to, like, laser point me, essentially. If we look at him, we look at his abilities, he can eradicate bleed, so he actually can remove bleed from the map. He has a laser ability, so you can read about what that's doing here and the different traits for it. I'm not going to go that in depth. I'll let you explore that more. Okay, I will talk about the militants, though. So militants are equipped with assault rifles. If we look at this, they do 1 damage, no armor piercing. I can't do it over here. We have 1 rifle per guy, so that equals the 1 times 6. So we're going to do all these stats times 6 times. We have a 50% accuracy, and we have a range of 2. But if we look at traits, we have close quarters fire. That means that we get plus 100% attacks at half range. So essentially, we would do 1 times 6 times 2 times 50% would be the damage equation. And then minus their armor. So they have 4 armor, so they have our damage mitigation, essentially. So, all that to say, for weapons that have close quarters, you want to get in close and use them. Duh. But that's not always obvious because you're thinking, oh, it's a rifle, and it's range 2, I want to stay at range 2. No. For these ones, for max damage, you want to get nice and close. So you can see here, I'm going to do 4 damage. I don't think this will preview. Yeah, actually it will. So if I could get in range and shoot from range 2, I would only do 2 damage. And that's just literally because I'm doubling my attacks. So go ahead and take the shots. Now, if we look at the Outrider, it does not have that attribute. So I am totally fine shooting from range 2 if I am so inclined. I'm going to actually zoom over here because I want a body block in case something else comes out of the fog to attack me. I'd rather have my heavily armored buggy rather than my lightly armored troops take the shots. Another one of note, this is most relevant to the soldier because you start with an Outrider, but for any faction who builds transports, if this unit gets really low and I'm worried about it dying, jump inside the buggy. It has a cargo slot, and I can continue to heal while sitting safely inside the buggy, and then just hop out when I'm ready to fight. Very, very strong for keeping units alive. And as I mentioned, you definitely want to level up units because you get stats, and keep them alive will definitely pay off. Yeah, see right here? We body blocked with this, so he didn't take the shot. Instead, we got shot on the Outrider. So we now have some sentry bots to attack us. Over here, we can see a voice cache. So if we move into that hex, we'll get some extra loot. What else do I want to talk about? I don't want this to drag on forever, as I tend to do. Let me call it specifically. This orange line is because we turned on that cliff setting. And while it's pretty obvious near the water, like duh, Babel, that's a cliff. You didn't need to tell me that. Land ones can sometimes be hard to see, especially if you're zoomed out. And there's nothing more frustrating than, let's say you have your commander unit who has both a melee attack and a ranged attack, and you're like, oh, I want to attack this guy in melee, and so you move right here, and then he just shoots and you don't kill the unit you thought you were going to kill. Whereas if I had moved here and got my melee attack, I would have gotten the kill. So I always play with the cliffs indicated on. Maybe you don't need it, but I find it exceedingly valuable to have that setting. Beyond that, I want to look at research. So let's say you've been researching your way through what are some other important techs. There are actually a couple that are vital in my opinion. First one is the habitation block. This will allow us to build more housing in our cities. And the Hollow Theater. This is the loyalty increasing building. Every population that we add to our city, so now we are at 2 population, and notice we're down to 4 loyalty. As this goes up, loyalty goes down. When you found other cities, you also get a loyalty penalty based on the number of cities you own. So it is a soft cap on the number of cities you can build, as it makes every city you build more expensive because you need to build more Hollow Theaters in every city to make up for the new city. So just food for thought on that. I would definitely say, unless you have a reason for something else, like maybe you need missile teams. Missile teams are really good for more heavily armored units than just rifle units. But barring that one, generally increasing my max population so I can work more buildings and increasing my loyalty so that I don't get production penalties. Very, very important here. Beyond those two, the next one is at tier 3 and the construction yard. Our starting city starts with a construction yard. You can see that is this right here. So it does 6 production and it requires 2 minerals, or excuse me, it produces 2 minerals, requires 2 energy and upkeep, and produces 2 influence. If I was to build a second construction yard, we could build buildings twice as fast. That's very, very important. We're going to spend a lot of time waiting around in our city with 1 construction yard. I tend to find that the sweet spot for most factions is 2. So we're going to want to build an additional one. Your mileage may vary there, but that is a very, very, very vital building. I would rush that, and I would rush the construction of it in your city. In addition, when you found new cities, there are different circumstances, but generally speaking, you're probably building either the construction yard first or a hex and then a construction yard. Maybe you'd have to build loyalty before it, but generally speaking, just bite the bullet, get the second construction yard so that you can build your other buildings quickly. Finally, as my like required things, engineers. Engineers are that starting unit we had that allowed us to found a new city, and further engineers will allow us to do the same. So you're going to want to get up a second and maybe a third city as early as possible so that you can get the income as possible. It takes time to get more population. If I build a city later on, even if I can rush buildings, if I don't have anyone to work in the building, they're not going to produce much because we're going to have that massive penalty. In addition, because you need to work the buildings, for me personally, the way I like to build, I'm going to build barracks in this city. So this city is going to produce my infantry. My second city will probably specialize in, for me, it's going to be the automated factory and building vehicles. So the reason I do that is, let's say I build 3 barracks and 3 factories, but then I put my barracks to sleep. Well, I'm paying the upkeep and the population to work a building I'm not using. So I try to spread them out a little bit. That's just how I like to organize my cities. In addition to all that, however, engineers also have other functions. In this game, you can actually use them to construct roads, which will allow your reinforcements to get to the front faster. They can clear tiles, like the bleed or forests. Why would I want to do that? This game's combat can be very tactical, and having the terrain advantage can be huge. So let's say, for example, that I decide I'm going to defend this choke point because I'm losing a war. I might try to, before the enemy arrives, come out here and clear these forests. I'd leave the bleed because that's in their way, but maybe I'd clear these forests so they don't have cover. Clear these ruins right here, and then I would be over here, hopefully inside my own city, hexes, or in these forests, shooting out from cover into open terrain. That would be the ideal for me. In addition, there's other things that engineers can do. Where was that tech? You can like get a tech where they can build bunkers, and that could be pretty useful for you. I don't remember where it's at, but that's another thing that they can do. In addition, they also can repair and buff mechanical units. So if I had an engineer, we could repair this just like a active ability. So just, and now we have more HP. Kind of like a medic would for a biological unit. I think I do want to call out one more tech while I'm here because I noticed it. Urban Sprawl, +1 acquisition range of cities. So right now in my city, if I wanted to acquire another hex, I can only do those neighboring ones. Once I have that tech, I can acquire one more out. So I could acquire right to here. And then the next tech will be out one more from there. Why that matters is that also could matter where you want to drop your city. If I dropped my city here instead of here, I would need +1 distance to be able to get this inside, and I would need +2 distance to be able to put this inside. So if you're trying to get a city to have multiple bonuses, you're going to want to plunk them down kind of in the middle of multiple things, but just know you have to get pretty high in the tech to be able to reach out that far and get them added into the city proper. Other than that, for tech costs obviously get higher the higher you go. The same rule applies. You need 3 to go on to the next tier, and that goes on all the way up to tier 10. So tons of things to unlock. Notice that they start becoming more and more specific. Oh, here's one more. You actually will have a tech for the faction you're playing. So way back here, the Parthian Equilibrium is our tech for the soldier. Next here, Salvation Protocols. Next one, Survival Training. So make sure to check those out. They lean into how your faction plays and give you bonuses kind of to your play style. Also, while I don't know what the meta strategy will be, don't be afraid of taking techs that aren't necessarily of your faction. So like if I think that a synthetic printer would be useful, get it and build it and then use it. That's totally fine. Like you're punished in the sense that it's kind of going out of your way to do it and you don't get those techs as early. But if like let me find another good one here. Yeah, let's say I want a Ermilan Assassin. This is the cyber hero. For the cyber factions, they can get her at tier 1. For me, I have to unlock her at tier 2. But if I want her, unlock her and use her. It's totally fine. Like don't feel like you're in a straitjacket. Like I said, for better or worse, we do not have stringent factions in this game. We have kind of soft factions in this game. Beyond that, this game does have diplomacy. So pick your teams carefully is what I will say there. There are some trading you can do. We also can trade with the concordant. So you can trade influence for resources. You could both sell and buy, especially in the early game. I would say if you could buy some chips and that's going to let you build a really important hero or building and you have the influence to spare, do it. It's better to get those things sooner rather than later. Another one might be energy. This tends to be the first crunch you run into is you're happily building along and all of a sudden you realize you're at -4 energy and you have 5 energy left. Well, if you run out of energy, every building that has energy upkeep is going to have massive, massive penalties. So at that point, you can come in here and you can disable buildings. So I could disable that. I'm not paying the upkeep, but nor am I constructing anything now. Or you could go buy some energy to keep yourself limping along long enough to build some more generators. So I think that's another food for thought. Other than that, as you're running around, you can find items. So like we found a spotter drone. Those cannot be equipped on regular units. They only go on to heroes. Read what they do. A lot of them are very powerful. But if you don't want whatever you got, you just think it's dumb or not useful, you can actually come in here and sell them for influence. And you also can buy things for influence. Some of these can be really powerful, like a trauma kit where you could just heal yourself. On a hero that's very important and you don't want them to die, maybe that's worthwhile. So take a look at your different items. There's some techs that will unlock more. Could be pretty powerful there. Beyond that, let me just reiterate, do not run off on your own with your units. There is nothing more frustrating than losing all your starting units, and then you're literally just staring at your city going intern, 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 intern. Oh, hey, I have one unit. I'm going to run. Oh, he's dead. Intern, intern, intern. Oh, I got one unit. Don't do it. Stick together. If you need to go 2 directions, you're not sending one guy alone. I would say at bare minimum, squads of 2. So that if this guy is super duper hurt, he can fall back while this guy buys time. You could do a fighting retreat backwards. Or he can stand in front of this guy and try to just keep things busy while he gets a couple turns to heal. If you have any questions about other things or you'd like some more tips, let me know. I'm going to have some Zephon content coming out. I don't know whether I'm going to just stream it or if I'm going to maybe just release them as videos. One way or the other, I'm going to do some. But if you just like a specific tip or you have a specific question, I have like, I don't know, hundreds or 1,000 hours in Gladius. I'm relatively confident in being able to answer any questions you have. Yeah, get out there and check it out. I think this is a very fun game. The benefit of being based on something like Gladius is you have years of balancing both just direct one-to-one, like how armor and damage interact with each other, but also just their experience with balancing these mechanics. So generally speaking, I think we are starting in a very nicely balanced game because it has that skeleton that they have been working on for, geez, how old is Gladius? 5-6 years that they started from. We're not building from scratch. We're iterating from our expertise. So very happy with that. Beyond that, check out the tooltips. They'll definitely help you. If you get confused, check out the compendium. There are all kinds. You can check buildings, you can check units, etc., etc. All things that are very helpful for you. Anything else I want to say? I think that's basically... Oh, mark tile. If you're playing in multiplayer, this can be pretty useful. So control plus mouse left click. And all that's going to do is put that on there. And I think in multiplayer, it pings the map for your ally too when you first drop it. Do note, people will be super annoying about this. They will totally write things on the map with it, etc., etc. So, is what it is there. Okay, Builders and Reavers, I hope this was at least enough to get you started in the game. As mentioned, if you found that interesting, maybe leave a like on this video. If you enjoy content for strategy games and other things I cover, maybe this is the video that I've earned your subscription from. I would gladly welcome you in and look forward to hearing from you. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one. Babble out.